This podcast is part of the Listen Frederick Podcast Network. To learn more, visit listenfrederick.com.
The Fedora Files.
Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora. Thank you for joining me. I'm in the great outdoors this week because it's such a beautiful day. Spring has sprung. I said, let's get outside before it gets too hot and get back to nature. This episode is brought to you by my Happy Little Monster series, volumes 1 through 4, which you can find on Amazon, as well as my brand new book, Sasquatch and Me, also available on Amazon. And I'm doing a little thing right now. If you buy either volumes 1 through 4 or Sasquatch and Me and leave a review of it, you will be entered in a drawing and you can win a free copy, signed hardback edition of the book of your choice from my series, either volumes 1 through 4 or Sasquatch and Me signed. You will just have to let me know, and it will be a hardback edition. So that is what's going on right now. This episode, I wanted to dive into something. I've done a Happy Little Monsters video on YouTube about this creature, as well as it is found in Happy Little Monsters Volume 1. It is the Dover Demon. Dover Demon. And I just wanted to get into it. It's an interesting story, interesting case. Now, the Dover Demon was a creature that was reportedly sighted from April 21st to the 22nd in 1977 in Dover, Massachusetts. And this town is about 15 miles south of Boston. And it occurred over a 2-day period. Now, the sightings were interesting. The first sighting was by a 17-year-old who went by William Bartlett, also known as Bill Bartlett, and he claimed that while driving on the 21st, he saw this alien-like creature with like fingers, tendril-like fingers, like long fingers, glowing eyes, and it was on top of a broken stone wall on Farm Street in Dover. And another guy, 15-year-old John Baxter, reported seeing a similar creature on Miller Hill Road that same evening. So we have two kids who saw this creature, and in different areas. They were not friends. They were, and they were about a couple miles apart, seeing this creature that appeared. The following night, a girl named Abby Brabham, she was 15. She claimed to see the same creature on Springdale Avenue, which was a few miles away from where the other two. Now, all three of these kids were not friends at all. They didn't know each other. There was no connection other than they all lived in Dover. They all three drew sketches for the police, and these things all looked very identical. And Bill Bartlett, who was a religious young fella, he swore, and he said, "I, Bill Bartlett, swear on a stack of Bibles that I saw this creature." And he was like adamant about it, freaked out about it. And I find it interesting because, it's 1977. Star Wars isn't out yet. So, we don't have the Star Wars craze happening. That's a year away. But as a teenager, do you want to be the kid known for seeing a crazy creature in a small town? And then you have two other kids that aren't friends of yours also claiming. So you have these three kids saying, they obviously are going to be made fun of for coming out and saying this, but it freaked them out. And if you, they did a map of where the thing was seen, and it was a 2-mile straight line that they had where each of these sightings occurred. They didn't, the police had this information, but they didn't release this information till like a few weeks later in May. So, and at that time, it was honestly they couldn't figure out what it was. They let it out. Now what's interesting, there were some similarities to the Kelly Hopkins creatures, which were encountered in 1955, which is in Kentucky. They're very similar description, with the glowing eyes, spindly fingers, but the drawings kind of show walking on four legs, where the Hopkinsville goblins were on two legs. So that's one of the differences. No one reported seeing UFOs at this time during all of this. But what was it? Was it an alien? Was it some kind of dog that had issues? What was it? Now here are some of the explanations people have given it. Some people believed it was a snow owl, which I don't know why, but they always go to the owl. They always like the owl is like the big, everyone's like, oh, it's an owl, it's an owl. But how do you get an owl, spindly fingers, walking on four legs, and it's an owl? I'm not sure how you get that. They say, well, maybe people thought it was um the feathers looked like fingers, but I've seen owls and they're freaky, but I would know an owl. I've actually hit an owl with my car. So I knew it was an owl when I hit it. It swooped down. It was big, had big wings. I didn't think it was some crazy alien or some like Mothman. It was an owl. It was very, very evident that it was an owl. And I think these people would know what an owl is. Others have claimed it was a baby moose. Problem with that is, again, the spindly fingers, as well as it was up on a wall. I don't think a baby moose, because even a baby moose is pretty darn big. And again, I think they would know a moose versus an this creature, whatever it was. The police actually went on to say that they thought it was a hoax by the three kids, but again, the three of them were not friends, didn't know each other until this occurred. They got to know each other after, but at the time, it was a crazy incident. Now, interestingly, since then, the Dover demon has not been seen since. Whatever it was, spotted and gone. It just vanished, and we have no explanation for it. I have no explanation for it. I do believe that they all saw something they could not figure out what it was. I always fall on that side. I'm like, yep, they saw something. They dealt with something. It freaked them out. And a lot of times people are like, well, they're teenagers. Teenagers, yeah, but you know what? Teenagers are also, yeah, they're young and they do dumb things. When I was a teenager, I did and said dumb things, but I was very conscious about not wanting to be made fun of and not wanting to be alienated. So had I seen something like this, and we got to remember this, like now in our present day, saying I saw ghosts, I saw this, I saw it's very accepted. Like we are very accepting of people saying they saw something and we want to believe. 1977, 1980s, even 90s, not so much. That's where I grew up. And like, if somebody said, ghost, okay, you're crazy. You're stupid. What were you drinking? What were you on? Same thing with aliens. What were you drinking? What were you on? People were not as accepting of these things. So I really believe they saw something. They were freaked out about this. And I find it interesting. It's a story that not many people talk about because there's not a whole lot of information. Like and unfortunately, the police didn't take it seriously, so they let it go, and so it's unsolved. So now it's left to conjecture. We don't know what it was. We don't know where it went, and now it's part of cryptid history, as it were. But it's a cool folk tale, and I hope it doesn't die. And that's part of why I want to talk about it, because some of these creatures, and that's why I wrote these books, is so we don't forget these creatures and stories because they're interesting, they're fun, they add to the community, they make Dover like, I want to go visit Dover. I want to see these places that these kids saw on this thing. So, what do you think the Dover Demon was? Where do you think it went? What do you think it's doing now? Do you think it was just an owl with spindly feathers that people thought were fingers? Do you think it was just a sickly baby moose? That's another one. Do you think these kids just made up? Do you think they actually knew each other, but then acted like they didn't so that they could perpetuate this hoax? But what do they have to gain from it? Nothing. They've gotten no money out of this. Like, they've never written a book about it. None of these three have gotten any financial gains out of this. And poor Bill Bartlett, he swore on Bibles, and he is a devout man. And what do we have to say about this now? And I would love to find out where they stand today on this. They've never really come out and talked more about it. I think they've been on a couple shows, found them, tracked them down, and got some info on them, but they're not outspoken people. And that's the other thing. You would think if it was they were trying to gain anything, they would have written a book by now. There'd be a movie deal, something. There isn't. It's one of those perplexing things that gets in my mind. I try and think about what could have been and what would I have done if I was in 1977. I was way too young. Nobody would have listened to me anyway. I wasn't a teenager. I wasn't a teenager for like 10 more years. So what are your thoughts on this? Where do you fall on the story of the Dover Demon? And what creature would you like me to look into more in-depthly next time? I'm trying to mix in some of these folk tales and stories and monsters into the podcast to just really to have it recorded and out there so we do not forget them. That's what, again, like I said, why I wrote the books, but also I want this out there because I know some people can't read and they need audio or video to get into their mind. So until next time, remember, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe and keep searching.
The Fedora Files.
Check out FedoraCRT.com today.